That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about The Last Showgirl, the third narrative feature directed by Gia Coppola, which premiered at the 2024 Toronto International Film Festival. Utopia is giving it an awards consideration limited release December 13th, 2024, before it expands January 10th, 2025.
Do you know Gia Coppola's other films?
Yes, Palo Alto and Mainstream, which are... I didn't like either of those films.
What is The Last Showgirl about? A seasoned showgirl must plan for her future when her show abruptly closes after a 30-year run. What is your pull quote?
The inspired casting of Pamela Anderson and a show-stopping Jamie Lee Curtis churn the gentle poignancy of The Last Showgirl into a slice of melancholic sublimity, despite a narrative which might feel a bit plain if not for the compelling zest of their performances.
Mine, Pamela Anderson has a good turn as the last showgirl, but may have been outshone by the last cocktail server, Jamie Lee Curtis. I did enjoy this film.
I did too, yeah.
But I wanted the roles to be switched. I wanted Jamie Lee Curtis to be the lead. Her character is much more interesting.
Annette.
The plot's pretty simple. Pamela Anderson plays a showgirl named Shelley. Mm-hmm. She performs on the Strip at a show called Les Razzle Dazzle. It's the last of its kind, and she's told that the show is closing in 2 weeks. So we see her coping with that, which doesn't amount to much. She kind of looks for a job. She goes on an audition that doesn't go very well. Mm-hmm. But the main plot line for her is she has a daughter who she's estranged from, and that daughter's played by...
Hannah, played by Billie Lourd, who's the child of Carrie Fisher.
Oh. And they're estranged because it seems like Pamela Anderson's character chose to be a showgirl over being a mother. Like she literally made her daughter second. So the daughter resents her, and I'm not quite clear on the specifics, but it seems like she had like a surrogate family that raised her. But the film ends with the final performance, and it's kind of like in Pamela's character's imagination. Mm-hmm. Like, she's kind of in the spotlight because we learned that really she's like fifth row in the back. She's like the oldest showgirl. The show's kind of sad, not well attended. Mm-hmm. So the only time we ever actually see the show is in her mind. And it's not a big production. It's just her sort of being the center of attention. The end.
And the people that mean something to her are smiling in the audience, even though we know they both are not there. Notably also, her face is used on the poster from the 80s.
Yeah. Well, like a lot of those shows, I mean, I think the last Showgirl show in Vegas was Folies Bergère, and similar thing, like they just trotted out the same assets for years and years, mm-hmm. and the show was not well attended, and then, it closed down, I think, when the Tropicana was imploded. But anyway, we didn't mention Jamie Lee Curtis, but she is Pamela Anderson's best friend.
Annette.
And she works as a cocktail server. And Jamie Lee Curtis, her look is spectacular.
Oh, yeah.
She has this wig on that looks like she colors her hair copper, but it's faded and her roots are growing out. And it's a very, 80s cut.
Well, imagine if Jane Fonda as Bree in Clute had aged very poorly.
And then she has, she looks like Tan Mom with these frosted lips. And just chain smoking for dear life.
But she is a good time gal.
She is. She's an alcoholic. Yeah. And we see that she's had issues with keeping a job. She's lost her home. At one point we learned she's actually homeless. Mm-hmm. So that's her sort of storyline, which is very tangential to what Pamela Anderson's going through. But yeah, there's not much to the story.
No, and I think it really is a fascinating character study, though, because it's really about a woman that is selfish and kind of mourning the loss of her youth, or not really dealing with it, because the razzle dazzle, it's not just it is her life. It is her. It's the defining factor of her existence.
I think that's what's missing is as someone who lived in Vegas and worked on the Strip for years, I feel like I know both of these ladies. Mm-hmm. And I think for Shelley, Pamela Anderson's character, she's much more easy to read. And during her audition, The film opens with her going on an audition, and we just see the beginning of it.
And saying she's 36, and I'm sorry, I'm 42.
But she's really like 58. But then towards the end, we see the full audition, and it goes terrible. And
Jason Schwartzman, of course, Coppola himself, is...
oh, that was him?
That was him.
Oh, I didn't even recognize him.
Is what's the casting director?
Sure. But he tells her, you know, you're not very good at dancing. Like, because she tries to dance and it's not impressive.
To Pat Benatar.
And he tells her, you know, the only reason you got hired back in the 80s is because you were beautiful and young. So you need to kind of move on, because you're not offering that to us today. You're clearly old and you can't dance. What are we going to hire you for? And I think that's essentially who her character is. A washed up showgirl who has nothing to show for it, no other skills. And I think that's what's missing, because, like you said, Les Razzle Dazzle is her entire life. But we don't really get a sense of what Les Razzle Dazzle is. We never see it in action. We see the behind the scenes workings in the dressing room. I didn't mention Dave Bautista plays like the show manager.
The stage manager.
Stage manager.
Eddie.
Whose wig looks really good.
Yeah, it's giving Sam Elliott.
But we find out, which kind of caught me off guard, that he is the father of Pam's daughter, Hannah.
But Hannah doesn't know that.
She doesn't know it.
It reminded, because we just rewatched The Ring with Naomi Watts, it reminded me of a similar relationship between those two characters and the kid.
Oh, sure. But he tries to rekindle their romance, maybe. They go on a date.
Yeah.
But it's clear... I thought that was a very effective scene, because it's clear that they don't interact, because at one point Jamie Lee Curtis's character tells Pamela, well, since you're going to be unemployed, why don't you just get with Dave Bautista? He has a good job, benefits, whatever. And she's like, no, that would be weird. But they do go on a date. And I think Dave Bautista's character was well written, because you can see during that scene, like, probably why he stopped talking to her. Because, like you said, she is selfish, very basic, and kind of nasty.
Yeah, there is a nasty side to her, but I also really appreciated that, because we're not making her a martyr or even a heroine. She's just a person in a very specific circumstance. And I think the cinematography, I think, is really quite good. Autumn Durald Arkapaw was the cinematographer, who's also lensed Gia Coppola's previous films. But it has this kind of this washed out look to it, and the focus, and very grainy, and the focus really is whoever's in the scene. Like, the world, they're in their own little bubbles. The world around them is beyond their reach.
I like the cinematography as well, because so we can surmise from what Pamela's character is saying that it's probably like 2017, like before the pandemic. But it's hard to tell what year it is actually, because Pamela's life, like her home, is very dated. It's like early 90s. Even her phone looks like it's from the early 2000s. She drives a car that's from the early 2000s. But then we see other markings that would indicate that it's more modern. But I think it's effective because she's stuck in the past.
Yeah.
Her decor, like just, even like the way she watches TV, it looks like it's from the early 90s. Like she has a projector. So I found her character quite basic. Like it's very clear to read who she is. Who I found immensely more interesting is Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
I want to know all about her alcoholism, how she lost her home, how she loses these jobs. I think one of the better scenes in the film is it's like, because clearly Jamie Lee, like, she's a cocktail server and she's not high on the list. So she gets cut early one day from her shift. And then she's told that these two younger cocktail servers are going to stay. So she's upset. And I think it's the next day that she goes to work and starts dancing.
I think she's spiraled out of control because she's lost that job, come to find, to total eclipse of the heart. Yeah.
Yeah, she gets up on like some stage in the casino and starts dancing. I think that the casino they're supposed to be in is shot in the Rio, which is a sad casino that needs to be imploded too. But it was very effective. Like the vibe felt very authentic to me.
It was giving new American cinema, which I'm sure Coppola, based on her pedigree, was highly influenced by. But like I thought of Barbara Loden's Wanda, especially the outdoor sequences. And that was a film that also made me think of when we watched it, that documentary Vera, about Vera Gemma. And the Pam Anderson character was kind of giving me vibes like that as well. But Last Picture Show, Paris, Texas, this drifter having to kind of come back and reacquaint themselves with a normal life.
We get a sense of how selfish and self-centered Shelley, Pamela Anderson's character, is, because within the show there are two much younger dancers. One played by
Kiernan Shipka, and the other one's Brenda Song.
And they consider Pamela like their mother, which she doesn't really love, but they all hang out. But then we see maybe like 3 or 4 times like their backstage life. And it's very clear that Pamela kind of just believes that she's the center of attention, even though no one's paying attention to her except these 2 girls. And she expects them to help her. Like they help her with her costumes. Every time she's back there, she's complaining, and to just the air. And these 2 respond to her. But then there's a pivotal moment when I think it's Kiernan's character. She goes to Pamela's house like unannounced, crying. Like, I need to talk, because she's upset. She left her home, like she was living with her mother, Kiernan's character, and moved to Vegas to be a showgirl at the behest of her mother, and then learns the hard way that her mother has disowned her for this. So she's trying to talk to Pamela like, I need your advice, I need a kind word. And Pamela's so wrapped up in her own nonsense that she slams the door in this lady's face.
Yeah,
like, I don't have time for you.
I don't have time for this now, yeah.
And then has the nerve that night, I think, or the next day at work, to act like she didn't slam a door in this lady's face, and then is asking her to help her with her costume. And Kiernan tells her, like, no, I want to see you do it on your own. And Pamela's so oblivious to it. Like, she doesn't realize that, like, you really let your friend down.
Well, I think she says something like, I wanted to make you feel useful or wanted. But she's very sensitive to changes in the environment, as per door handle that gets installed, and it keeps tearing at the wings of
That's
the
a really
costume.
good, in the beginning when they're first running from backstage to go on stage, which again, we don't ever see them on stage, but there's a new door handle that, Pamela just can't seem to wrap her head around that it's there. And at the final show, she rips her outfit again on this door handle. So I mean, again, I think
she also has a nasty moment with Brenda Song as well, because after the audition where Jason Schwartzman reads her for filth, she's hysterical in the parking lot, and her friend goes after her and talks about how, like, you're family to me, and she goes, I don't love you.
Yeah, I'm not your mother, you're not my daughter. So I think this is a good role for Pamela Anderson, in the way that I think Demi Moore in The Substance was like, I mean, it's just a role perfect for her. I was waiting for Pamela's performance to send me somewhere, and I think she does a fine job.
I agree. So her voice, because I haven't seen Pam in a movie in a while, but she sounds a lot like Melanie Griffith.
I don't think I knew what Pamela Anderson sounded like speaking, and so I don't know if what she's doing in this movie is an affect, because she sounds like Melanie Griffith mixed with like Betty Boop. And
I think that I remember watching Baywatch and Barbed Wire. I think she does speak that way, but there's a flintiness to her. There's an edge that was kind of reminding me of Ellen Burstyn a little bit too. I
would like to see what else she can do, because this really does feel like she's playing a version of herself. But
which makes it really interesting. But again, going back to, it's her face that's pasted all over the Razzle Dazzle's marketing materials
from like 25 years ago.
And I think I was waiting for that extra dimension, kind of like, as you referenced The Substance with Demi, as having to contend with this past beauty that you can't have anymore. I mean, she's still a beautiful, well-preserved woman. Like, there's nothing wrong with Pamela Anderson. But
when she's done, well, that's a good point, because when she is done up, she does look like a showgirl. But then we do see a lot of her without makeup, with her hair kind of, ratted up.
Looking like a normal person.
And she looked like a normal person, so I did appreciate that. But anyway, you were saying.
But she never really has to face like what has been lost in the sands of time.
Right.
And like she even confronts Eddie like, my face is on there. But what do you feel about that? What do you feel about having to see that face and people aren't treating it the same way that they used to?
There's a dimension to her character that's missing because I feel like I better understand Jamie Lee Curtis's character. Mm-hmm. I think I better understand Hannah, the daughter, better than I do the main character.
Because I feel like even though she clearly hasn't looked beyond tomorrow, what's she really going to do? Because she can't even... She gets a date canceled that she bought fish for the date. And then, so she invites her girlfriends over. She can't even afford to buy more fish to accommodate the other people that come over. So she needs money.
Yeah.
But...
Well, another good point is that I didn't feel at the end of the film that I was worried about what Shelley's going to do. And I think that's the fault of the script.
I think...
That I didn't really care, maybe.
I think there's some really great things in the script by Kate Gersten, who has worked in television a lot, especially Mozart in the Jungle, but I think is a first feature script. I think it's pretty impressive for a first feature script. But I don't feel a sense of danger for her as I do for the Jamie Lee Curtis character. Like it's like the Sebastian Lelio's Gloria versus Gloria Bell, because he remade his own film in English with Julianne Moore. I don't feel the same way about, I feel like Julianne Moore is going to be fine in the English language version, but in the original Chilean version, I'm like, this woman might be about to lose it all.
Gosh, it'd be so fun if they made a sequel called The Last Cocktail Server and then focus on Jamie Lee. I mean, and see what Pam's up to.
I would love more of that character. But I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis has also been someone that's never been afraid to go there. Whatever era that she's in, she seems fearless, which I don't think you see a lot of.
Is she got another Best Supporting nom?
I wouldn't be
for
shocked.
This. I wouldn't be shocked.
No, it's transfixing.
Yeah. What would you give The Last Showgirl?
I would give it 3.5.
I would give The Last Showgirl 3.5 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.